The cabin in the woods. In the northern part of the U.S. state of Oregon, there was a place in the dense forest that the locals didn't even like to talk about after midnight. People only knew it by one name, Blackwood Cabin. There were many stories about it on the internet. Some people said that people disappeared there. Some said that a woman could be heard crying there at night, while some claimed that people who had died could be seen on the old TV inside the cabin. But Ethan Carter didn't believe in all of these things. Ethan was a 27-year-old YouTuber who made horror investigation videos. His channel was growing quite quickly, but he needed a story that would make his channel explode. And then he found a post on Reddit. If you ever find Blackwood Cabin, don't enter after midnight. The post was only a day old. But the strange thing was that the account that posted this was deleted the next day. Ethan immediately called his friend Ryan Brooks. "Bro, we're going there." Ryan laughed. "Perfect. If there's a ghost there, views are guaranteed." 2 days later, a black SUV was entering the forest on a rain-soaked road. The car's headlights were casting strange shadows among the trees. Ethan was in the driver's seat while Ryan was checking the camera setup. Battery full. Ryan said, "Night vision is ready too." Ethan glanced at the GPS. It should be somewhere nearby. Suddenly, the GPS blinked, then turned off completely. Ryan frowned. Seriously? The car's radio suddenly started to make static noise. SHHHHHHH. Then a soft voice was heard. "Turn back." They both fell silent. Ryan laughed. "Nice prank." But Ethan's face had lost its color, because the radio was unplugged. About 15 minutes later, they saw the place. An old wooden cabin among the trees. Its windows were broken. The door was half open. The wood had turned black due to the rain. Ryan turned on the camera. "Alright guys, we have arrived at the Blackwood Cabin. If this video is uploaded, then it means we came back alive." He laughed. But Ethan didn't laugh, because he clearly felt that someone was watching them. As soon as the two approached the cabin, the door automatically opened with a creaking sound. It was pitch dark inside. There was dirt on the floor, but the strange thing was that there were fresh footprints. Ryan whispered, "Someone's here." Ethan turned on the flashlight. There were strange symbols on the walls. In some places, there were scratches, as if someone had scratched the wood with nails. Then they saw an old TV. The TV was off, but in front of it, a rocking chair was slowly shaking. "Crap, crap, crap," Ryan said with a nervous laugh. "Okay, this is creepy." Suddenly, the TV turned on automatically. Static appeared on the screen. Then the image cleared. Ethan's breath stopped, because on the screen, they were both standing by themselves. But the video was not live. In it, Ethan and Ryan were standing inside the cabin screaming. And then something dark appeared behind them on the screen. A tall man, whose face was completely hidden in darkness. The next moment, Ryan was dragged to the ground in the TV footage. His scream echoed throughout the cabin. Ryan immediately tried to turn off the TV. But now there was only one sentence written on the screen. "You were never alone." At that moment, a loud sound came from the floor above the cabin. Knock. Then, knock, 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 as if someone was walking slowly. Ryan looked up fearfully. "Tell me that's you." Ethan shook his head. "No." The sound of a woman crying came from above. Slowly, painfully, Ryan raised the camera. "Bro, we have to record this." They started moving towards the stairs. The wood creaked with each step. Crap, crap. When they reached the top, the hallway was completely dark. At the end, a door was slowly moving, as if someone was inside. Ethan mustered up the courage and opened the door. The room was empty, but there was a sentence written in blood on the wall. "She still waits." Ryan suddenly zoomed in on the camera. "Ethan, look there." An old photo was lying in the corner of the room. A family was standing in the photo. A mother, a father, and a little girl. But everyone's faces were scratched out, except for the girl. A name was written below the photo. Lily Blackwood. Suddenly, there was a sound of running down the hallway. "Damn, damn, damn." Ryan immediately turned on the flashlight. The hallway was empty. But then, a girl's voice came from under the stairs. "Mommy." A cold wave ran through Ethan's body. Ryan said in a soft voice, Did you hear that? Then the same voice came again, this time closer. Mommy, where are you? Suddenly, a small shadow appeared at the end of the hallway. A girl, in a white dress. Her long black hair spread across her face. She slowly started looking at them. Ryan zoomed in on the camera, and then the camera started to glitch. The screen flickered. When the image became clear again, the girl was standing closer in the hallway than before. Very close. So close that her eyes were now clearly visible. Black. Completely black. Ryan screamed. What the hell is that? Suddenly, all the lights went off. The entire cabin was plunged into darkness. Only the camera's red recording light was on. And then, someone whispered close to Ethan's ear. You shouldn't have come here. Ethan panicked and turned on the flashlight. But Ryan was gone. Ryan! No answer. Only the sound of dragging was coming from above, like a body being dragged across the floor. Ethan ran quickly down the hallway. Ryan! Then he found Ryan's camera on the floor. The camera was still recording. Ethan watched the footage with trembling hands. In the video, Ryan was standing in the hallway. Then the same tall black man appeared behind him. His face was still not visible, but his long fingers rested gently on Ryan's shoulder. Ryan froze. Then the only sound in the video was a horrifying scream, and the screen went black. At that moment, someone behind Ethan said softly, He's gone now. Ethan slowly turned around. The same girl was standing right behind him, and this time, she was smiling. That thing wasn't human. Ethan's breath caught. The girl was standing right in front of him. Her dark eyes were staring at Ethan without blinking. There was a strange smile on her lips, a smile that didn't look good on a child's face. A deep chill spread through the room. Ethan shone the flashlight at her face with trembling hands. Where's Ryan? The girl didn't answer. She just tilted her head slowly. Then, she disappeared. 1 second ago she was there, the next moment the hallway was empty. Ethan backed away. His heart was beating so fast that he could hear a sound in his ears. Bang, bang, bang. Suddenly, there was the sound of something falling from the ground floor below. Bang. Ethan was startled. Ryan. He immediately ran towards the stairs. With each step, it seemed as if the entire cabin was breathing. The wooden walls were creaking. There was the sound of water dripping in the distance. When Ethan reached the bottom, the lounge was completely dark. Only the TV was on. Static was playing on it. SHHHHHHH. Then suddenly the screen cleared. An old VHS recording started playing on the TV. The date was written, October 14th, 1998. The same cabin was visible in the video, but it was new at the time. The walls were clean. The furniture was in perfect condition. A man was sitting in front of the camera. About 40 years old, long beard, frightened eyes. If anyone is watching this tape, the man said in a trembling voice, then for God's sake get out of here. Ethan stood frozen. She won't let us go. Suddenly, a girl walked past from behind in the video. The same white dress. The same black hair. The man immediately started crying. No, 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 no. Lily, please. The screen glitched. Then the man in the video suddenly started screaming, because a long black shadow had appeared on the wall behind him. The thing was human-like but unusually long. Its hands were reaching for the floor. And then, the TV screen went completely black. Only one voice remained. She needs more. The TV turned off. Silence fell throughout the cabin. Ethan looked back in horror. And at that moment, he saw Ryan near the kitchen door. Ryan! Ethan immediately ran towards him. Ryan was sitting on the ground. His face had turned white. His breathing was rapid. Bro, Ryan said with difficulty. We have to get out of here now. Where were you? Ryan pointed to the hallway with a trembling hand. That thing took me down to the basement. A cold wave ran through Ethan's body. Basement. Ryan shook his head. There's something under this cabin. The two immediately started to get out. But as soon as Ethan opened the main door, they both froze. Because the forest outside was gone. There was only darkness on the other side of the door. A complete black void. As if the cabin had now moved to another place. Ryan stepped back. What the hell? Suddenly the door slammed shut. Bang! The entire cabin shook. And then the sound of children laughing began to come from the floor above. Not one. Several children. Ha ha ha, ha ha. Ethan looked up in fear. Small handprints were forming on the ceiling. Wet, black handprints. Like something was crawling up. Ryan almost shouted, "We're not going to the basement. Got it?" But at that moment the floorboards started to shake. And the carpet between the lounge and the living room automatically slid. There was a wooden trapdoor downstairs. Basement. The trapdoor slowly opened on its own. It was completely dark downstairs. But the sound of a woman crying was coming from there. Ethan's hands started to shake. Ryan shook his head. No, no, bro. Then suddenly, someone grabbed Ryan's leg. Ryan screamed loudly. Long black fingers came out from under the floor and started dragging him. Ethan, help me. Ethan immediately ran to catch him. But those fingers had inhuman strength. Ryan was slowly being dragged towards the basement. His fingers were rubbing against the floor. Don't let go. Ethan was pulling him with all his strength. Then suddenly, Ryan froze and looked behind Ethan. His eyes widened in fear. Behind you. Ethan slowly turned. The same tall black man was standing behind him. Now, for the first time, his face was visible. Or maybe there was no face at all. Just black flesh. And a huge smile in the middle. Inhuman. Impossibly large. The thing bent slowly. And whispered, "You brought him to me." The next moment, Ethan leapt into the air and crashed into the wall. Ryan was dragged screaming into the basement. The trapdoor slammed shut. Silence. Only Ethan's broken breaths remained. Tears welled up in his eyes. Ryan. Then, Ryan's voice came from below the basement. He was screaming for help. Ethan, please. Ethan immediately ran towards the trapdoor. But as soon as he put his hand down, Ryan's voice changed. Deep. Bad. Inhuman. Come down here. Ethan immediately stepped back. Because it wasn't Ryan's voice anymore. Suddenly, the TV turned back on. Live footage was playing on the screen. Basement. There Ryan stood. But his face was completely submerged in darkness. Then Ryan looked slowly at the camera and smiled. Exactly the same horrifying smile, like that tall black man's. Blood-red letters appeared on the screen. One of you belongs to her now. The TV turned off, and Ethan realized for the first time the cabin wasn't haunted. It was a trap for something, and maybe that thing didn't want to finish hunting just yet. Under the basement, Ethan stood frozen for a long time. The TV had turned off, but Ryan's horrifying smile was still playing in his mind. It wasn't Ryan, at least not anymore. The cabin was completely silent. Only the sound of thunder could be heard from somewhere far outside. Ethan picked up his camera with trembling hands. The recording was still playing. He said softly to himself, "If anyone finds this video, don't come here." Suddenly, footsteps were heard from the floor above again. Knock, knock, knock. This time the footsteps weren't slow, as if something was moving fast. Ethan flashed his flashlight up. The hallway was empty. Then he saw movement towards the kitchen. Someone poked their head out from behind the door. Ryan. Ryan. He immediately ran towards her. But as soon as he entered the kitchen, he stopped. The kitchen was empty. Only the sink was full of blood. And on the wall was written with fingers, "Don't trust him." Ethan backed away. His breathing was getting uncontrollable. What is all this? Then he heard a voice. Ryan's. Ethan? The voice was coming from below the basement. The trapdoor slowly started to open on its own. CHRR. It was completely dark down there. But now there was also a dim yellow light, as if an old bulb was burning somewhere in the basement. Ryan's weak voice came again. "Please help me." Ethan's mind was telling him that going down would be suicide. But Ryan was his best friend. He couldn't leave him there. He took courage and slowly started to descend the basement stairs. With each step, the stench below was getting stronger. Wet dirt, rotting flesh, and something that Ethan didn't want to recognize. The basement was huge, much larger than the original cabin. The walls were made of stone. It seemed as if this place was even older than the cabin. In the light of the flashlight, Ethan saw strange symbols. The same symbols that were made on the walls above. but here they were made of blood. Then Ethan froze. There were several old photos hanging on the wall. Each photo had different people. Some police officers, some young YouTubers, some ordinary families, but all the photos had one thing in common. Everyone's faces were scratched, except for one person. There was only one girl in each photo. Lily Blackwood. Ethan said in a trembling voice, "What are you?" Then he heard a soft laugh from behind. A girl's laugh. He turned immediately. Lily was standing at the end of the hallway. This time she had a dirty doll in her hand. She slowly started walking towards Ethan. Tip, tip, tip. "Where's Ryan?" Ethan shouted. Lily stopped. Then she pointed to a dark corner of the basement. Ethan shone the flashlight there, and her blood froze. Several people were chained in the corner, some alive, some dead. One man's eyes were gouged out. A woman was constantly banging her head on the wall. And in the middle sat Ryan. His hands were tied with chains. "Ethan!" Ryan shouted. Ethan immediately ran towards him. "Bro, hold on." Ryan was crying. "This place won't let us go." Ethan tried to open the chains, but they were made of strange metal. Only then did Ryan suddenly fall silent. His eyes locked on Ethan. "No." Ethan turned slowly. The tall black man stood in front of him again. This time, closer than before. And now Ethan could see something strange on his body. There were faces inside his body. Dozens of faces. Screaming. Crying. As if they were all still alive inside him. Ethan backed away in fear. The creature spoke slowly. "She keeps them forever." Then the basement lights began to flicker. Ryan began to scream loudly. "Don't look at it." But it was too late. Ethan had looked into the creature's eyes. And suddenly, images began to come to his mind. Fast, horrifying. 1998. A family shifts in this cabin. The father performs occult rituals. He experiments on his daughter Lily. Then one night, something goes wrong. That thing comes from under the ground, and the whole family disappears. Ethan falls to the ground screaming. His nose starts bleeding. The creature leans over and approaches him. Now you've seen her memories. Then Lily slowly approaches Ethan. She speaks for the first time. "Mommy is lonely." Her voice is not that of a child. It sounds like several voices are speaking at once. She wants new people. Ryan suddenly starts laughing hysterically. Ethan looks at him in surprise. "Ryan?" Ryan slowly raises his head, and Ethan's heart stops. Because Ryan's eyes have turned completely black, just like Lily's. Ryan smiles. "You should have left when you had the chance." The next moment, all the lights in the basement went out. Complete darkness. Then whispers started coming from all directions. "Stay with us. Don't leave. She's watching." Ethan screamed in the darkness. "Ryan." Then suddenly someone placed a hand on his shoulder. Cold, inhuman hands. And then two glowing white eyes opened in the darkness. Right in front of him. Lily wasn't alone anymore. In the darkness of the basement, those white eyes were shining right in front of Ethan. Ethan's body couldn't move. He felt as if the entire basement was alive, as if the walls were breathing. Then suddenly the flashlight turned on again. As the light spread, what Ethan saw, it drained the blood from his body. It was Ryan, but now there was no humanity left on his face. His skin had turned unusually white. His eyes were completely black. His lips were pulled into a strange smile. Ryan slowly moved towards Ethan. "Ryan, please." Ethan's voice was trembling. "It's not you." Ryan stopped. For a few seconds, confusion came over his face, as if the real Ryan was still alive somewhere inside. Then he grabbed his head with both hands. "Get out," he said in pain. "Ryan." Suddenly, Ryan screamed loudly, and black smoke began to come out of his mouth. The creature appeared from the darkness of the basement. Tall, inhuman. Hundreds of faces were moving on its body. Some crying, some laughing, some asking for help. The creature placed a hand on Ryan's head, and immediately Ryan fell silent. Then he looked at Ethan. "He belongs to her now." Ethan immediately backed away. "What do you guys want?" Lily slowly came out of the darkness. Her doll's face was now also covered in blood. Mommy likes people, Lily said in a low voice. She doesn't want to be alone. Suddenly screams began to come from the basement walls. Ethan hit the flashlight against the wall and froze. There were faces inside the wall. Real human faces. They were trapped alive inside the wall. Their eyes were moving. A woman screamed at Ethan, "Run!" The next moment the wall pulled him back in. Ethan's legs started shaking. These weren't ghosts. This place was absorbing people. Ryan suddenly approached Ethan. His voice was still strange, like two people talking at once. "There's another door down in the basement." Ethan looked at him in confusion. Ryan pointed into the darkness with a trembling hand. "The real thing is there." The creature screamed angrily. The entire basement shook. Lily's eyes widened in anger. "He wasn't supposed to tell you." Suddenly, the chains started moving on their own. They started moving towards Ethan. Ethan immediately ran away. Chains were crawling behind him like snakes. He entered a narrow hallway inside the basement. Lily's laughter echoed from behind. "Haha, you can't leave." At the end of the hallway was an old iron door. On the door was written in blood, "Do not open." Ethan looked back. Chains were approaching quickly. He immediately opened the door and entered. The room was very small. There were old candles on the walls. In the middle was a wooden table. And on this table was a diary. Ethan immediately opened the diary. The first page, Journal of Samuel Blackwood. Ethan's breath stopped. It was Lily's father's diary. He quickly started turning the pages. Lily was sick. The doctors couldn't save her. Next page. I contacted the entity under the forest. Next page. She can keep my daughter alive. Ethan's hands started shaking. The next page was full of blood. IT lied. The pages started turning rapidly. The same sentence was written on each page. She is not my daughter. She is not my daughter. She is not my daughter. Suddenly, the last page opened automatically. There was a picture. A huge door under the cabin. And behind that door, something. Something that made Samuel scratch out the entire drawing. Only 2 words were clear. The Hollow Man. Ethan closed the diary. At that moment, a voice came from behind him. "Ethan?" He turned around immediately. Ryan was standing at the door. But now his smile was more horrifying than ever. "You shouldn't have seen this." Ethan pulled back. "Ryan, listen to me." Suddenly, Ryan's neck began to twist unnaturally. Crack, crack, crack. Black liquid began to flow from his mouth. Then he said softly, "He knows your name now." The candles in the room went out together. Complete darkness. Then a deep voice echoed from the ground below, so heavy that the walls shook. "Ethan." Ethan's blood froze. Because that voice was not human. And that thing was watching him. The Hollow Man. It was completely dark inside the room. Only Ethan's rapid breathing could be heard. Then that voice came again. "Ethan." This time the walls really started to shake. Dust started falling from the ceiling. Ethan immediately turned on the flashlight. Ryan was still standing in the circle of light, but now his body was twitching strangely. His bones were making a sound like they were breaking as they moved. Crack, crack. Ryan slowly raised his head. There was only darkness in his eyes now. "He's waking up." Ethan immediately picked up the diary and ran towards the door. But Ryan suddenly appeared in front of him with inhuman speed. "You can't go." His voice now sounded like a mixture of several voices, as if all the people trapped in the basement were speaking at once. Ethan pushed him with all his might. Ryan hit the wall, and at that moment Lily's laughter echoed from the hallway. "Haha, Daddy said you would run." Ethan froze.
"Daddy?"
Suddenly, there was a loud explosion from below the basement.
"Damn."
The entire floor shook. Black smoke started coming out of the end of the hallway. And then, a long crack formed in the ground. Inside this crack, there was only darkness. But inside this darkness, something was moving. Very big. Very slowly. The words from the diary began to echo in Ethan's mind. The Hollow Man. Ethan ran to the other side of the basement. There he found the old generator room. There were several VHS tapes scattered inside the room. And there was a map on the wall of the cabin. But a hidden structure was also drawn under the map. another level below the basement. And in the center of this level was written, "The Pit." Ethan took the map in his hand. Then he heard a weak voice from behind. "Ethan?" He immediately turned. An old man was sitting in the shadows. His beard was long. His body was covered in wounds. Ethan was shocked. "Wait, you're the same man with the tape." The old man shook his head. "My name is Daniel," he said in a trembling voice. "I've been trapped here since 1998. Ethan's eyes widened. "Impossible." Daniel laughed. But that laugh was full of madness. "This place changes time." He slowly approached Ethan. "You have to understand, Lily is not the real problem." "Then what is?" Daniel's face drained of color. "Lily is just a door." At that moment, a horrifying scream was heard from the basement. A scream like hundreds of people were screaming in pain at once. Daniel started to tremble in fear. "He's hungry," Ethan quickly asked. "What is this hollow man?" Tears welled up in Daniel's eyes. "That thing thrives on the fear of humans. Samuel Blackwood called it to save his daughter. And then it took Lily." Daniel pointed to the basement with a trembling hand. "And now it's taking in every new human." Suddenly, the lights in the room began to flicker. Ryan appeared in the hallway. Several shadows stood beside him. Human forms, but without faces. Ryan spoke slowly. "He wants to meet you," Daniel immediately shouted. "Don't look at them." But it was too late. The shadows raised their heads together, and Ethan felt as if thousands of voices were entering his mind. "Stay. Join us. Become part of us." Ethan fell to the ground screaming in pain. Visions began to appear before his eyes. People, hundreds of people, who were trapped inside the hollow man. Their souls were still alive. They wanted to get out, but they couldn't. Then Ethan saw something else. A little boy, about 10 years old. He stood apart from the other trapped people, and he was looking at Ethan. The boy said softly, "Close the pit, or he'll come out." The vision ended. Ethan raised his head, gasping. The shadows were gone. Ryan too. Daniel said quickly, "We have to go down now." "Why?" "Because if the hollow man fully wakes up, he won't be limited to the cabin." Ethan froze. "What do you mean?" Daniel said softly. "He'll spread all over the world." At that moment, there was a loud bang on the generator room door. Bang. Then again. Bang. Ryan's distorted voice echoed from outside. "Ethan, open the door." Daniel stepped back in fear. He's not Ryan anymore. The door slowly began to bend inward, as if something very powerful was standing outside. Then long black fingers began to come in from under the door. Ethan looked at them in horror. Those fingers were not human. Very long, very thin, and on each finger was a small human eye. Those eyes were looking at Ethan. And then, the same deep voice came from behind the door. "I can see you now." The pit. The door to the generator room was shaking continuously. Bang, bang. The wood was breaking with each blow. Daniel backed away in fear. "He's going to come in?" Ethan immediately looked around the room. An old shotgun was leaning against the wall. He immediately picked it up. "This can stop him?" Daniel laughed nervously. "A bullet can't stop this thing." The black fingers emerging from under the door were now crawling on the floor. The eyes on them were blinking continuously. "Ethan," the voice was now coming from everywhere. From the ceiling, from the walls, from inside Ethan's own mind. Daniel suddenly handed the map to Ethan. "The pit is under the basement. If we get there, maybe we can close the door. Maybe this is the only chance." Suddenly, the door slammed shut. Bang! Icy air rushed into the room. Ryan stood in the doorway, but he didn't look fully human anymore. His arms had grown unusually long. His skin was cracking. Black liquid was flowing from his eyes. And behind him stood those faceless shadows. Ryan smiled slowly. "He's waiting for you," Daniel shouted. "Run." The two immediately ran out of the generator room. The shadows started running after them. Whispers echoed everywhere in the hallway. "Don't leave. Stay with us. Become one." Ethan and Daniel reached the end of the basement. There was a rusty elevator. Above it was written in blood, "The pit below." Daniel pressed the elevator button with a trembling hand. A few seconds later, the elevator opened with a creaking sound. It was completely dark inside. Ryan's distorted scream echoed from behind. "You can't hide from him." Shadows were approaching. Daniel and Ethan immediately entered the elevator. The door closed, and the elevator began to descend. As the elevator descended, the temperature was dropping. Smoke began to come out of Ethan's breath. Then the elevator suddenly stopped. The door slowly opened, and what Ethan saw, it blew his mind. Below was a huge underground cave, so big that the flashlight light couldn't see its end. There was an abyss in the center of the cave. An endless pit. The pit. Black smoke was coming out of it. And inside that smoke were faces. Screaming faces. Thousands. Chains were hanging on the walls of the cave, and bodies were tied to these chains. Some old skeletons, and some people were still alive. A woman screamed hysterically when she saw Ethan. "Don't let him wake up." Then suddenly an unseen force pulled her into the darkness. The screams immediately fell silent. Ethan's legs began to weaken. "Oh God," Daniel said in a trembling voice. "This is the place where Samuel performed the ritual." Ethan peered inside the pit. Something was moving inside. Very low, very big. Then suddenly a voice came into Ethan's mind. "Come closer." That voice was the Hollow Man. Ethan covered his ears. But the voice wouldn't stop. "I know your fear. I know your pain." The visions began. He saw himself as a child. His father, who was leaving him. He saw his mother crying. All that fear, all the memories started to come back. Ethan screamed in pain. Daniel grabbed him. "Don't look at him." Suddenly the cave began to echo with children's laughter. Lily stood among the shadows. There were several other children with her. All of them had completely black eyes. Lily said innocently, "Mommy wants Ethan now." Then a huge hand came out of the pit. Black, smelling, and human faces were embedded on his skin. That hand was slowly coming up. The entire cave began to shake. Daniel screamed in fear. "He's coming out." Ethan backed away. But suddenly someone grabbed his arm. Ryan. His face had almost dissolved now. But for a few moments, the real Ryan returned to his eyes. "Ethan," his voice was weak. "I can't control it much longer." Tears welled up in Ethan's eyes. "Bro." Ryan placed a trembling hand on Ethan's chest. "There's a seal on the edge of the pit. Destroy it." "Then what?" Ryan smiled slightly. "Then maybe we'll all be finished." Suddenly Ryan's body began to twitch violently. The Hollow Man was taking control again. Ryan shouted, "Now go!" Ethan immediately ran to the edge of the cave. There were glowing symbols on the ground, the same symbols that were all over the cabin. Daniel shouted, "Break them." Ethan raised his shotgun and fired at the symbols. Bang! The first symbol broke. At that moment, a horrifying roar echoed from inside the pit. The entire cave began to shake. Another shot. Bang! More cracks spread. The Hollow Man's hand came out further. Now half of his body was sticking out of the pit. The creature was so big that the cave seemed small. And then for the first time Ethan saw his face. That face was made up of hundreds of human faces. And in the middle of it all, Ryan's face was also there. He was screaming at Ethan. "Run!" Suddenly, the last symbol started to glow on its own. Lily's voice echoed throughout the cave. "If the seal breaks, he will be free." Ethan froze. Because if the seal breaks, then maybe the Hollow Man will be free forever. And behind him, the creature started to crawl out of the pit. The seal was about to break. The entire cave was shaking. Rocks were falling from the ceiling. The Hollow Man emerging from the pit was now more clearly visible than ever. He was so large that his body was disappearing into the darkness. Hundreds of human faces were moving on his skin. Some were screaming, some were laughing, and some were asking Ethan for help. "Help us. Don't let him out." Ryan's face was also among them. His eyes hurt. "Ethan," Ryan shouted, "don't break the seal." Ethan froze. The shotgun in his hand was shaking. Daniel immediately came to him. "If the seal doesn't break, then we'll never be able to get out of here. And if it does?" Daniel fell silent, because both possibilities were terrifying. Suddenly, the hollow man's eyes locked on Ethan. Then, the creature smiled. That smile was beyond human imagination. All the faces on his body began to speak at once. You are afraid. We can feel it. Ethan's brain began to ache violently. He fell to his knees. The vision started again. He saw himself in the future. The streets of New York City were empty. People were turning into shadows. Human faces were trapped inside the walls of buildings. And in the sky, Hollow Man, huge, bigger than the entire city. The vision ended. Ethan gasped and backed away. No. Daniel grabbed Ethan's shoulders. Listen to me. If he comes out, it's all over. Then what do we do? There was hopelessness in Daniel's eyes. Someone has to stay behind. Silence fell. Ethan understood. Someone had to be sacrificed to close the pit. At that moment, Ryan fell to the ground screaming. The Hollow Man was trying to completely control his body. Ryan was writhing in pain. Ethan, please. Ethan immediately ran to him. Ryan said in a weak voice, Finish me. Ethan stepped back in shock. What? If he consumes me completely, he will become even stronger. A black liquid was flowing from Ryan's eyes. Do it. Ethan's hands started shaking. He couldn't kill his best friend. Suddenly Lily appeared between the two of them. This time she was angry. Her skin began to peel. Something else was moving beneath her face. He belongs to Mommy. Lily's scream echoed throughout the cave. And then for the first time, her true form appeared. Her body began to lengthen unnaturally. There were sounds of bones breaking. Crack, crack. Another mouth opened inside her mouth. Long teeth, black tongue. Ethan backed away in horror. Lily was not human. Maybe she never was. The creature attacked Ethan. Ethan fired a shotgun. Bang. Lily hit the wall. But she started laughing. Haha. Mommy says pain is beautiful. Suddenly, a siren-like sound echoed inside the cave. The color drained from Daniel's face. He's fully awake. Movement began to increase inside the pit. The Hollow Man was now almost completely out. Endless darkness was moving behind him, as if all of hell was coming out with him. Ryan looked at Ethan one last time. For a few moments, the real Ryan returned to his eyes. Bro. He smiled slightly. Thanks for trying. Then Ryan suddenly pushed Ethan hard. Ethan fell to the ground. And Ryan himself ran to the edge of the pit. Ryan, no. Ryan grabbed the last seal with both hands. Black smoke began to come out of his body. He was screaming. The Hollow Man was screaming too. Both of their voices echoed together. Ryan looked at Ethan and said, When I say fire. Tears welled up in Ethan's eyes. Ryan. Do it. Suddenly, the Hollow Man's huge hand reached out towards Ryan. Ryan was holding the seal with all his strength. Now, Ethan. Ethan raised the shotgun with trembling hands. His fingers stopped on the trigger. If he had fired, Ryan would have died. If he hadn't, Hollow Man would have been free. Ethan's breathing stopped. And then, he pulled the trigger. Boom. The shot echoed throughout the cave. Ryan's scream was heard. The seal broke. And, at that moment, a roar so terrifying came from inside the pit that the entire cave began to explode. Hollow Man began to come out completely. But Ryan smiled in his dying breath and said, Got you. Suddenly, a blue light burst from the seal. That light clung to Hollow Man's body like chains. The creature screamed in pain for the first time. Daniel screamed in shock. Ryan reversed the seal. The Hollow Man started to pull back towards the pit. But as he went, his thousands of eyes fixed on Ethan. And he said one last time, I will find you. Then the entire cave began to collapse. Daniel screamed, Run. Ethan looked at Ryan one last time. He was standing on the edge of the pit. Half of his body had disappeared into the darkness. Ryan smiled slightly. And then, he too was pulled into the darkness. The pit closed. Complete silence. Only Ethan's scream remained. Rhiannon. Blackwood never ends. The cave was collapsing rapidly. Rocks were falling everywhere. The pit had closed, but the hollow man's final roar was still echoing in the walls. Ethan stood in shock. Ryan had just disappeared into the darkness before his eyes. Forever. Daniel grabbed him tightly. Ethan, we have to get out now. Ethan came out of his trance. Both of them immediately ran towards the elevator. The cave was collapsing behind him. The faces trapped inside the walls were screaming for the last time. Don't leave us. Help. Then everything began to be buried in darkness. The elevator was moving upwards. There was silence. Only the creaking of machinery could be heard. Ethan sat on the ground. His hands were covered in blood. Ryan's blood. Daniel said softly. He saved all of us. Ethan didn't answer. Ryan's last smile was playing in his mind. Got you. Suddenly the elevator stopped. Lights started flickering. Ethan immediately became alert. What happened? Daniel pressed the buttons in panic. No. Then a scratching sound began to come from outside the elevator. See-char-r-r. See-char-r-r. Like someone was scratching nails on metal. Ethan's breath caught. He can't be. Then that voice came.
Low. Bad.
But familiar. Ethan? Ethan's eyes widened. Ryan? Daniel immediately shouted.
No.
Don't listen to him. But the elevator doors slowly started to open. And outside, Ryan stood. Or at least he looked like Ryan. Half of his face had dissolved into darkness. The skin was cracked. His eyes were completely black. But there was that same old smile on his lips. Bro. He spoke in a weak voice. Help me. Tears welled up in Ethan's eyes. Ryan. He started to move forward. Daniel immediately caught him. That's not Ryan. Suddenly, Ryan's body jerked. His neck twisted unnaturally. Crack. Then several sounds came out of his mouth at once. Let me in. I'm cold. Don't abandon me. Ethan froze. The thing slowly started to approach the elevator. And then, several human hands started to emerge from inside his chest. Ryan's true face appeared for a few moments. He screamed in pain. Run, Ethan. Daniel immediately pulled the emergency lever. The elevator started to go up again. The creature started to scream in anger. His scream echoed throughout the shaft. You can't escape me. A few moments later, the elevator reached the ground floor. The cabin was shaking badly. The walls were cracking. The TV was turning on and off automatically. Various faces could be seen amidst the static. All those people who had been trapped inside the Hollow Man. Ethan and Daniel ran towards the main door. This time, there was really a forest outside the door. It was raining. Ethan opened the door, but Daniel stopped. Ethan looked at him in surprise. Daniel? Daniel was silently looking at the cabin. There was a strange expression in his eyes. I can't go out. What? Daniel smiled weakly. I've been trapped here since 1998, Ethan. This place won't let me go. Ethan's heart sank. No. Daniel took out a VHS tape from his pocket. The same tape, the one Ethan had first seen on TV. To warn people, the cabin began to shake violently. The ceiling began to collapse. Daniel slowly retreated into the darkness. And don't ever come back. Then the main door closed automatically.
Bang.
Ethan was left outside, alone. By morning, rescue teams had reached the forest. He found Ethan in a hysterical state. He told the police everything. Blackwood cabin, Lily, the pit, Hollow Man. But when the police arrived there, the cabin was gone. The entire area was empty, as if nothing had ever been there. The police described Ethan's words as trauma. Ryan was officially declared missing, and no record of Daniel was ever found. 6 months later, Ethan had stopped making horror videos. He started living alone in a small apartment in Seattle. He couldn't sleep at night, because every night, he would hear whispers. Ethan, we remember you. One night, he was deleting old recordings on his laptop. Suddenly, the screen flickered. Then a new video file appeared automatically. Blackwood_final, MP4. Ethan's blood froze. He played the video with trembling hands. There was darkness on the screen. Then the image slowly cleared. The camera was in a dark place. Maybe the pit. Then Ryan came in front of the camera. But now his whole body was made of darkness. His eyes were completely black. He smiled straight into the camera and said softly, "He found a way out." Video glitch. In the next frame, Ethan saw himself inside his apartment. Live footage. Something was recording him. Ethan backed away in fear. Then the apartment lights went off. Complete darkness. Then footsteps were heard from the hallway. Knock, knock. Ethan's breathing stopped. And then the same deep voice echoed from within the darkness. "I told you, I would find you." Two white eyes opened in the hallway, and the screen went black.